Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. The storm system, that's a big talker. Now, we've had some pretty mild conditions ahead of it, but things will start to deteriorate once we go into that weekend forecast, and some adjustments have been made when it comes to rainfall totals, as well as the timing on when we can expect that heavier rainfall. We had clouds streaming in earlier today. Those high clouds mixed in out there. We are continuing to see those as we go into tonight. So clouds all ahead of that storm system, just building in. Area of low pressure actually pushed those high clouds in our direction yesterday. It faded out, got absorbed into the jet stream, but we're still seeing some of that coverage as the area of low pressure, the one that was towards the north of it I showed you yesterday, is starting to close in. That's going to be the rainmaker. So when we look at our overnight lows, you have 55 degrees for Poway, the same for Escondido, 46 degrees for Ramona, 60 degrees for downtown. Daytime highs all pretty consistent with those widespread 70s across the county. 77 degrees for Escondido for tomorrow, the same for Valley Center, 76 for La Mesa, 71 degrees for downtown, 69 degrees for Carlsbad. We will have temperatures that will be a little bit cooler than they were earlier today, and so continuing that trend as the cooler air does move in and becomes stronger, especially by Friday and into the weekend, and that's when we can expect those temperatures to be below seasonal widespread across the county. Area of high pressure still exiting out towards the east, but here's that incoming low pressure system. It was a little bit more towards the north yesterday, but making that dip and also sending scattered showers across Northern California, and we're going to see that just trickle in across the entire state. So the weather impact, that is going to be heavy rainfall and also elevated flood concerns. And so we'll be watching out for any of the alerts that go out because those rainfall estimates have actually increased, and that's going into the weekend. So elevated flood concerns out there, especially roadways north of us, areas like LA County, portions of Orange County, even dealing with the potential when it comes to debris flow and mudslides from burn scar areas because of fires that have happened, even going all the way back to the January fires that happened in LA for the Palisades as well as the Eaton fire. So those areas, debris, mud flow being an issue, especially when you're talking about some of their rainfall estimates that look to be above 3 inches of rainfall. Heaviest rainfall now looks to be on Saturday. That's because we are looking at chances, and that will start tomorrow night for Thursday. And so we could see some light to moderate rainfall. Holding on to that range, you're going to see that in the forecast model all the way through about Friday morning. But then we get into the afternoon hours. Friday afternoon all the way through about Sunday morning, we are looking at our chances increasing, and then also talking about some heavier rainfall, especially in the afternoon hours as we hit our Saturday forecast. So I'll set the clock in motion coming up and you'll see that. When talking about those burn scar areas, it's a major concern, especially when you can see the rainfall totals for that region for this weekend. You're talking about 5 inches of rainfall. That's for Oxnard. Also seeing a little bit close to that 5.5-inch mark for LA. Looking at high rainfall totals as well for Pomona and for Long Beach. It is a atmospheric river that this area of low pressure is tapping into. So the moisture will dry out as it makes its way towards the south, and that us being the southernmost portion when it does come to Southern California, that's why some of that moisture is going to dry out. But we are still looking at some pretty high rainfall totals for our county. Time frame being about Friday afternoon, taking it all the way into about Sunday morning, that we are looking at some pretty high rainfall totals that put us close to about 2 inches for Palomar Mountain. Also talking about a little bit more than 1.5 inches for Escondido as well as for Poway, and even some pretty high totals you're seeing right there for North County. I do want to also make mention of this because changes have been happening every single day, whether it's the timing of just like how much we're going to get or when we're expecting that heavier rainfall, that our in-house model is suggesting that we could see about less than 2 inches of rainfall, and that would be across the mountains. But I also want to show you what the numbers are coming in as from the National Weather Service. And so this will also change. All of this is subject to change. It's just that as we get closer to this event happening, I have noticed that these rainfall totals have gone up a little bit more, especially when you're talking about an atmospheric river event. And so we are looking at just kind of comparing. So west of the mountains kind of seem to be a little more on par with that in-house model that we're seeing, showing the 1.5 inches to about 2 inches, potentially even close to about 3 inches for North County. And that would be for coastal North County. So that would be west of the mountains, seeing that on basically the time frame of Friday all the way through about Sunday morning. But our in-house model was suggesting seeing a little less than about 2 inches of rainfall for the mountains, but the National Weather Service is suggesting about 3 to 5 inches of rainfall for the mountains. And so that's something that we're going to continue to monitor as the system does get closer towards us. Regardless, you're still talking about heavy rainfall. We're still looking at the potential of seeing those flood alerts going out as well because of this, especially with Saturday being the more favorable day now, where we're looking at the heaviest rainfall with this system. You also have measurable rainfall right there for the desert. Could see an upwards of about an inch of rainfall. And so that's on the higher end. Moral of the story, everywhere in the county is looking at some pretty measurable rainfall. On our website, cbs8.com, I mentioned this yesterday, I'm going to mention this again. And you're going to hear me talk about tomorrow too. We have a link, and go to our website, cbs8.com, and you'll see a link to sandbags. That is because if you have a home that when we had atmospheric river events in the past or just heavy rainfall, if your home or business was prone to flooding, it's a good idea to go get those sandbags. And so right there on our homepage, there is a link of locations across the county where you can go. So we're looking at these heavy rainfall totals. Let's go ahead and set the clock in motion. As mentioned, still seeing the clouds in the forecast for tomorrow. Then we get into about tomorrow night. That's when we start to have that pickup, as I mentioned, by Thursday night, more of the light to moderate. And that's going to linger all the way until about Friday. So you have some light showers starting to move in around 10:35. This is what our in-house model is suggesting. Continuing to see that influx of moisture all the way into the morning hours for Friday. Around 9:45, you are seeing more moderate rainfall picking up. You still have some lighter rainfall on those outskirts, but still looking at those deeper greens starting to move in about 9:45. Then we have another influx of moisture into the afternoon hours, so that morning and evening drive on Friday, that's going to be a little treacherous out there, especially because even when we get some light rainfall, if it's been a while, that's going to allow the oil to come up on the road and get really slick. So please give yourself some extra time. Be mindful of that. We get a lot of spin outs whenever we start to get these rainstorms moving in. So we are looking at that rain moving in yet again, still talking about that more light to moderate activity around 2:30 on Friday. We still hold on to that activity as we go into about 7:15 on Friday night. You're seeing it get caught up a little bit more across the mountains, but still not done just yet. Another influx of moisture moves in as we go into our Friday evening. So make sure you have your umbrella, make sure that you're giving yourself some extra time, or if you don't even need to be on the roads, why not? Just stay at home or just hang out with a friend. When we look at the overnight hours, that's when we start to get those more moderate pockets moving in, a little bit heavier as well. And so that gives us a little bit more of heavier rainfall right there. And that's going to be in the overnight hours. So maybe it'll wake you up, or maybe, heck, if you're like me, it'll just help you sleep a little bit more of raindrops out there. But then we're looking at that heavier rainfall. That's going to be more with the moderate to heavy, as well as a chance for thunderstorms. You are seeing some deep oranges as well as some deep reds starting to pop up. So about 11:45 on Saturday morning, we are seeing a lot of that moisture, that heavier activity stretch from the mountains towards the coast. Seeing some wet weather for the desert as well. We see an influx and across a good portion of the county by 1:50 in the afternoon on Saturday. You're seeing heavier rainfall. And so we're seeing that across Poway as well as for Oceanside, seeing it for mainly North County, and then seeing some of those heavier cells moving in towards the desert as well. That's as that low closes in on us. Also looking at that moderate rainfall trickling down towards downtown, and so we continue to have wet weather in the forecast even into about 5:30 on Saturday evening. But you're also noticing less of those deep oranges, you get less of the deep yellows, and that's because we're starting to see it lift just a little bit more. But still looking at some of that moisture getting caught up about 5:30 on Saturday across the mountains, and still holding on to chances as we go into the second half of the weekend. This is all happening from this area of low pressure that closes in. As we've been talking about, it taps into an atmospheric river, and so we're the tail end of that across our state. And so for Southern California, we're still looking at some pretty high totals, just as mentioned, not as high as areas north of us where they could see upwards of about 3 to 5 inches of rainfall, especially in the LA area. So the low itself has to move over us to exit out. And that's why we're still holding on to chances in our forecast for Saturday as well as Sunday, especially into Sunday morning. We could see a little bit of a break, maybe some spotty shower activity. It's supposed to be what we call wraparound moisture. So lingering as the low because it's counterclockwise circulation moves towards the east. So a few lingering showers out there. Then we get into the start of next week. We still have a big dip in the jet stream. Another area of low pressure closes in. That presents more of a chance for wet weather on Monday and Tuesday of next week. We still hold on to those chances. Wednesday we dry out just a little bit. You'll see that coming up, that no rainfall really anticipated for Wednesday, so that would be the break in the atmosphere. But I said break because we have another storm system right behind that. And this also looks to tap into an atmospheric river as well, but this one looks to be weaker by next week. So then we're looking at Thursday. Thursday bringing in chances of wet weather again in our forecast. So a pretty active pattern that is anticipated for us through the next 7 days and potentially beyond that into the second half of next week. So pretty mild for tomorrow, clouds still building in all ahead of that storm system, and then you have your weather impact alert days. We're going with just 1 day previously, but because those chances are still fairly high, we still have a chance of seeing weather impact alert days that would impact your weekend. So the heavier rainfall for Saturday, but still that the slick roads I showed you on Friday, especially with the morning and the evening drive. And so that will be on Friday, heavy rainfall on Saturday, Sunday morning, still looking at those chances. They're going to be high, but it's supposed to be lighter in nature. Then we get to next week where we're still holding on to chances. Other lows start to move in. We get a little bit more of a break, but still hold on to the cooler than usual temperatures by Wednesday of next week, west of the mountains with widespread 60s. When we look at the mountains, you have the 60s for tomorrow. You're back into the 50s. That's going to start on Friday with weather impact alert days. I'm going to tell you right now, you'll likely see those red boxes extended into next week as rain chances have actually been going up for next week with those lows I just showed you as well. So we'll keep you posted on that. But we're going to focus right now on this storm system coming in for the weekend. So weather impact alert days for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday across the county. You're seeing that for the mountains as well as for the desert. Temperatures taking a dip in degrees. We were in the 90s yesterday, and that was for the desert. Talking about the 60s returning for daytime highs over the weekend with the chance for wet weather. Those 60s stick around all the way into next week. We also have the coolest day Tuesday of next week for the mountains at 48 degrees, and then a little bit warmer with more sunshine by the middle of next week. People have also been asking about snow. Snow level looks to be fairly high when you're talking about atmospheric rivers, starting off about 10,000 feet. By Friday, coming down to about 7,500 feet. So not really focusing on snow in our local mountains, more of the emphasis with rain and the potential of also seeing flood watches, warnings, and anything popping up in advisories because of that heavy rainfall. We'll continue to keep you updated right here and on social media, and thank you for tuning in.